Welcome to Beyond the Beers. Men breaking the stereotype through conversation. We men love a good yarn, some banter, even better over a beer or tea. Sadly for many men, it never goes deeper than that. This show is a place for men to go beyond the surface level conversations, a chance to learn, listen, laugh and grow. I'm your host Mike, man coach and author of Amazon bestseller for men's health, Unleash Your Alpha. Let's break stereotypes through conversation. Let's go beyond the beers. Today we are coming to you live from the Triple M radio station studios here in Sydney. That is because I'm sitting here with Mr. Gus Worland. Now Gus, probably more commonly, is one of the hosts on the Triple M breakfast show, The Grill Team, in the mornings. But more recently, he's the brains, face and passion behind a TV series of his own creation called Man Up, which is quite simply summed up as one man's mission to save Aussie Blokes. I was blown away by the show and I want to honour Gus for putting his weight and passion and influence into bringing this conversation into the public forum. So thank you for doing that, Gus, and thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's crack into it, eh?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for the beers.
No worries.
It is 9:15 in the morning though.
Look, well done on Man Up. Great stuff.
Thank you. I when I first spoke to the people about it and putting it all together, I didn't quite realise how much it was going to affect me and how much it was going to resonate with the Australian people. It's quite incredible. Yesterday it went worldwide.
Yeah.
40 odd million people have seen the TV commercial which we created in episode 3. My life has changed so much for the better. Yeah. And I'm just very lucky that I got the gig.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit? Talk us through the journey that you personally went on through the filming and then the airing of this show.
Well, I think initially it started off with me losing a friend of mine 10 years ago last Friday actually, and for years being angry with him, for years basically sticking my head in the sand and not quite ever educating myself on perhaps why he did it. Yeah. So once I started launching into that and I realised that Aussie men are just awesome at sort of putting a mask on. We're very good at just bullshitting ourselves and bullshitting people around us to saying, hey, we're cool. I got everything covered. I don't need any help, being very stoic. I realised that my friend Angus was the ultimate person like that. Yeah. I thought he was bulletproof, mistake-free, and I didn't realise until I really properly investigated it that he was going through all sorts of trouble. Yeah. And he ended up taking his own life 10 years ago. So it started off with me learning all about that, having the conversation with his wife and his children, making sure that I could actually talk about it in the show. So I had those discussions before a moment was filmed. And they said, look, we've all been silent for too long. We're all starting to come out now. Okay. Lifeline is the chosen charity for our family, and they'd already done charity runs. They had done volunteering and so forth. So it was out there. So they said, well, let's try to get the conversation going. So for me, it was a very personal journey. Yeah. And then very quickly, sort of, 10 days into filming, and it took us 61 days in total. 10 days into filming, I realised that I couldn't do a lot for Angus, but I could do something for my son, who was 16, just at the start of those horrible stats that we have in Australia. The number one way to lose your life in Australia, from 15 to 44-year-old man, is suicide. And
that's where we learn to kind of thicken that mask as well, right?
Absolutely, exactly right. We're continually told just to man up. We're continually told to just suck it up and get on with it. Yeah. So I said, well, okay, I can't do anything about Angus, but I've learnt enough to perhaps help my son and his mates. Because you remember, if you've got a 16-year-old son who's sporty and popular, there's another 15 blokes that are part of my life who I've known from primary school.
Absolutely.
So I want to look after them, and I want to make sure that their dads who have become mates of mine, they're going to be okay and they're giving the right type of example to their boys. Yeah. So it became this mission, if you like, on how do I make sure that my son Jack's okay. And then by the end of it, it was such a long process, over a year. By the end of it, it was like, okay, well, if I can show an example, then perhaps a whole lot of other Aussie blokes might sit there, resonate, and go, right, well, if Gus can do it, then I might be able to do it. And that was really cool. I've had 11,500 personal letters since Man Up finished.
Amazing.
10 a day here, so 50, 60 a week come into Triple M. Handwritten notes from older people who said, I wish I'd seen Man Up earlier, I've lost someone. So every one of those require a reply, they require respect, they require love, understanding. So that's what I'm doing now is,
Nice.
amongst keynote stuff around the subject, getting back to all those people, going to the health minister, talking to ABC about Series 2.
Yeah.
We're very good in Australia at starting a conversation and hoping someone else might be able to finish it off for us.
Yeah.
So I've decided that that's not going to happen. I'll be the one that does it.
Nice. Very nice. Respect.
Thank you.
So then, your own conversations, outside of these bigger ones you're having, keynotes, all this stuff,
Yep.
how have your own conversations changed or maybe just been affected in terms of the content that you've been delving into?
I definitely think they've changed. If you ask my friends, they'd say it's changed.
Yeah.
I'm a bit more of a pain in the ass now. I won't accept fine. I won't accept I'm okay, buddy. I won't accept, oh, look, I'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
I'm sort of really conscious that in the moment that I'm trying to be the best possible mate as possible.
So how do you approach that?
I think the only way you can, which is like balls up, hands on shoulder, look someone in the eye, connect and say, how are you? Are you going okay, mate?
Yep.
And most blokes will say, I'm fine. It's the first lie that most of us learn.
Yep.
So I just go, mate, no matter what, let's deal with whatever we're dealing with. And I've got a walking group on a Sunday. We walk around Narrabeen Lake and around the headland at Long Reef. And there's anything between sort of 6 and 10 of us. There's little groups that go off now, like me and one mate. They start off all together and we drift, go at different pace.
Yep.
And the person that's with me tends to be having like a little session.
Yeah.
But it's just as much a session for me because I might have started the whole convo saying, look, I've had a tough week, this has happened, or I've got an issue here, I don't know how to handle it or whatever. So everyone's helping each other out. And it just seems to be that everyone now sort of understands that that's our church, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very cool thing. And I'm hoping that a whole lot of other Aussie blokes might be doing the same thing.
And obviously we see men's groups and all these amazing things popping up, which is great. And whatever resonates, I think, and works for you, right? It doesn't need to be a template or a mold, but something where there's some space for conversation.
That's it.
And so what I'm getting there is a lot of you genuinely asking and actually challenging guys to not just say, I'm fine. So what about you? Where's your outlet? How do you have the deeper conversations?
Yeah, it's a good point. I saw that when I had some dramas a few years ago in my personal life, I went and saw this lady. Now, I used to call her a witch because she used to really dig and dive and make me feel uncomfortable, very awkward.
Yeah.
After a couple of years of paying this lady, $50 a pop, I realised that she was an angel. So I've actually changed her in my phone from witch to angel. And I haven't seen her for a long time. I didn't need to see her. I seemed to have the right sort of setup around me amongst my friends that were able to help me. But Man Up really tested that.
Yeah.
I remember getting a phone call from the head of the ABC about halfway through the shooting. They'd seen like a rush of an episode and a half. And they said to me, you are just going to get sick. You're going to get ill. You're not going to be cool for the rest of this show unless you either have some time off, because I was doing the show here,
of course,
waking up at 3:30, doing the show and then shooting off. And of course it was an ABC show, it was a documentary show, so not a lot of money floating around. Everyone's doing their best. If you've got a crew together, then you are shooting all day. You're not doing a half day and, So I was working my tail off and loving what I was doing, but all the stories I was getting, I was holding on to. They were sitting on my chest and in my heart. I wasn't able to drive away from those and just clear it and go, right, I've been present in the moment, I'm going to move on. I was thinking about it all the way home. I was thinking about when I got home. My wife said that I was starting to get distant.
Yeah. And even if you're not actually thinking about it, which is I think probably for a lot of guys, it's there, right?
It's just there. And I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. I cannot hold on to too many things. It's really obvious to me if I'm thinking about something, then it's got my full attention. I can't do much. I can't multitask.
Yeah.
So that started affecting home, and it started affecting, not being able to. So I started saying, well, I'm trying to be an example of being a good Aussie bloke and being emotional, but I'm holding on to stuff here myself. It's not a good example. So I needed that little trigger from the ABC to say, go and see someone. We'll look after whatever the cost and so forth. So I just rang my lady again, and she goes, oh, right. Haven't heard from you for a couple of years. And I said, well, this is what I'm doing. She goes, come in and see me. And I walked in the door and she just went, oh my dear. She goes, get on the bed. And she said, you have this build up of just emotion around your chest and heart. We just need to get rid of it. Yeah. And for some people watching this might go, what is he talking about? But I believe in her, and I believe that in the emotion that comes with it. So I allowed her to basically get all rid of that. I walked out of there, I was 20 kilos lighter. I mean, I wish she could do more for my actual physical weight. But mentally, I literally bounced, I floated out of there and I went, God, did I need that? So that I've got that professionally, but I've also got this awesome bunch of mates and a wife that...
Like you said, when you go walking, you might start the conversation and stuff as well.
Yeah, of course.
And I think, you said maybe people might not, resonate with what that is, but either way, and, for a lot of us men, we haven't really learnt to experience our emotions and deal with them.
We've been told all our life to not show that emotion, be stoic and
so when we push something down, and we always do this, but it does happen, we push it down, the body remembers and it stays there, it will come out in some way. Flying off the handle because you put something down the wrong way or whatever it is, right?
You fly off the handle with something that seems so ridiculously easy and simple, but it's a build-up of the 100 things that you've shoved down, and that's what makes our ladies or our partners or our friends not understand. It's like, you're losing the plot, you're getting worried over that. It's like, it's not that, it's that that's been gone back 3 or 4 months or years in some men's cases.
It adds up, right?
Of course it does, and we need to have a valve that we just let the pressure off, and every conversation I have with my mates now is a little loosening of the pressure valve.
Absolutely.
And they know that there's a trust there, that whatever they tell me will stay with me. And
which is important as well, very important, I think,
The other problem I think with men that I've worked out, and I used to do it myself, is that we always try to fix things. So if you told me you had a problem, as you're talking to me, I'm not exactly listening to every word because I've got the gist of what you're saying, and I'm just waiting for you to stop so I can go, let me tell you how you can get better. So I've learned, and I'm trying to learn, I'm still getting the hang of it, the listening and the... You're not a nail, I'm not a hammer, so I can't just fix you simply. It needs to be a situation where I listen, and say, look, I've got no advice for you except to say, thank you for sharing, and I hope you feel better for doing it. And then at least you've had the conversation. It might have that might be all you need.
Absolutely, and I think that's a very important point. We can go, how do I solve this? But if we're the person not wanting to share, and then maybe we're going to open up, we're also thinking about solutions too. What's the solution? What can he do for me? Whereas most of the time, exactly, the solution is getting it out. And if you are asking someone, mate, how are you actually doing? Talk to me. Then it's simply that. Just listen. Right? That can be it. Cool. Let's come back another day, maybe.
That's right. Or at least the awkward discussion, which I talk about in a lot of my keynote stuff, is that the initial conversation starter is awkward. And we don't want to be in an awkward place. As human beings, we want to try to make our life as easy as possible. So we need to somehow just push through that barrier. And once those first few sentences are out and the space has been given, this is not a chat about the footy, girlfriend, fart joke. This is actually, I'm having a proper conversation. All of a sudden, everything just becomes easy. Easier.
And it doesn't need to be the most earth-shattering, deep, serious conversation. It's something that just a bit beyond the surface, right?
Exactly.
And I think the important word you said earlier was trust as well. We need to know that we're safe. And so it's the listener's responsibility to provide that. But as the sharer, you might need to ask, mate, I'm shit scared about talking about something. Can you listen and help me out? If he says no, then probably don't share, but a good mate's going to listen, right?
Well, it's a really good way of shedding a certain bunch of mates as well. Like, I reckon there's a massive difference between a mate and a friend. So I've got a whole heap of mates. Blokes I love having a crack with them, going to beers, going to sport, whatever it might be. People you work with, great work mates. You just love seeing them every day and stuff. But are they your friends? Are they the 1, the 5, the 10 people in your life where you go, you know what, warts and all, I can absolutely go there with that person.
Your brothers, right?
Your brothers. And that was a big thing for me. I remember having a conversation when I was about 20, looking forward to my 21st birthday, and an older guy said to me, how many people are you coming to your party? I said, look, about 180. And he just couldn't believe it. And and he goes, why 180? He goes, they're all my friends. And he goes, no, they're not. They're just people you knock around with that you have fun with. I go, exactly. And he goes, I promise you by the time you're 40, there'll be 5 people, not out of it, probably not even at 180, I never asked him, but there'll be 5 people in the world that you absolutely would call like besties. It's probably right.
Yeah, and a lot of men over the age of 30 and approaching kind of 40 struggle. They don't even have that, right? We can very easily isolate ourselves, work as our environment. So a lot of men do struggle to find that. And so their conversation is perhaps trying to approach someone new and go, can we actually knock around and
that's a difficult conversation to have.
It may be. So conversation, right? For me, obviously that's what we're talking about. For the show, for me, it's what we're talking about. And you said, okay, so you've got your mates, you've got your friends, your brothers, right? And then you've also got the show, right? So Triple M is probably the blokiest radio station out there. So how do you kind of handle that balance? Do you find yourself in conversations where it does maybe challenge your morals and your values now, more so? How do you handle those?
It's a good point. Can I play a certain role in the team as well? And Matty John sometimes has said it more in the last couple of weeks than ever. He goes, how does that man up thing that you're going through allow you to say that? And he says it on air.
Yeah.
So he challenges me all the time. And I quite like that challenge because there is a line between sort of banter, when you're having a banter with someone and the things you say and it's a joke, and a role I play compared to who I am as a person, talking as I do now with the fact that I've just educated myself and I've been educated the last year. I've changed a lot of my thoughts on things. So there is a moment there that I probably overstepped the line, and I've just got to accept that.
Which we do, and I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Bloody oath.
We're going to do that, right? No one's perfect.
No, and someone who talks as much as I do, there's going to be a time where you just put your foot in it, and you just make a mistake. And when Maddie normally picks me up on it, I'm the first one to say it, or put someone on, as you know, social media, whatever you say, like people are sometimes very nice and correcting you, and other people just call you all sorts of names and, why have you got that job and and you just block them and move on. But you're right, you've got to be able to accept that, I overstep the mark at times, but that's me trying to be entertaining, trying to, move a few different worlds all together. There's bound to be a little bit of clunk and clank at some time.
So what about outside of the show? Just in your normal life, if you find yourself in maybe, like a really blokey conversation, maybe it's, let's say it's maybe objectifying women or it's something, how do you go there?
I think a year ago, I'd be different to what I am now. I think I'm much more likely now. In fact, I know 100% likely I'd sort of pull people up on it. I probably wouldn't have in the past. Especially if it's someone I don't really know and stuff, I probably just would let it go because it's like I don't know them. But I don't want to be the preacher or the...
Of course.
But there is a line there, and I've got 2 daughters and a wife and a mum that I love and adore and cherish, and I don't like stuff that perhaps I liked a little earlier because I was ignorant to it.
Your awareness is now and so on.
That's right. So if you're aware of something now, it's up for me to draw the line or walk away. That's the other thing that you can do.
And that is a lot of, I think, a lot of guys get in that situation. It's tricky. I've got some values here. Do I challenge this guy, as you said? Do I walk away? Or do I just ignore it? And,
is it important enough?
Yeah.
Pick
my battles.
Pick your battles, and the situation too. You do at the start of a night and you've got a couple of friends that you love and respect and they've brought this person in. You don't want to stuff the whole night up by trying to be all lordy and high and mighty, but you just let it go and you have in the back of your mind, you go, that bloke's a bit of a cockhead and whatever it might be, but that's okay. There's something there and we just move on, and that's probably the sensible way.
Yeah, cool.
But you're challenged all the time. The more knowledge you have, the more challenged you become, I reckon.
Exactly, and I think this is important because we get into these situations and it's easy just to go, nah, fuck it, it's too hard. But at the same time, I think if you're going to try and go, you know what? No. But allow yourself to screw it up or let some go, whatever it is.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like absolutely anything in life. It's balance.
Yeah. So, okay, we've spoken a lot about conversations between people, right? What about the internal conversation? Because obviously one of the more important conversations we have on a daily basis is the one we have with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So, do you find yourself up in your head a lot, as many of us guys do?
Yeah.
And if so, what is that kind of internal dialogue for you?
I tend to be pretty easy on myself. Yeah. I think most blokes, you're either really writing yourself, and way too much, or we're way too easy on ourselves. I think blokes find it really hard to get the balance. I'm talking about balance a lot today. So I'm probably easy on myself when it comes to...
Having a beer at 9 in the morning?
Well, I wouldn't be having a beer, and I've got a keynote at lunchtime, so it could be a little loose. But no, for me, I've got some demons. I've got some stuff that I have to worry about. I have to care about. I need to nurture and take care of. I've learned a lot about myself in the last 18 months or so.
No doubt.
So I tend to give myself more of a pass mark than a fail in most things. But there are times where I'm just, so, what's the right word? I'm so tough on myself, and I need to literally say to my wife or mate of mine, I'm having a real struggle coping with this, and they go, what are you even worrying about that for?
Cool.
Like, you can't actually control that.
Yeah.
I think the conversations that most men have in their head are ones that we can't actually do that much about.
Yeah.
We're just worrying about things that we can't control.
Yeah. So worrying about things in the future, perhaps, as opposed to being...
Of course. And also worrying about what someone might have thought of you or say about you. Then I've got no control over what people think.
So when it's that voice that's a bit more on the being hard on yourself, perhaps, or maybe heading towards being detrimental, you can recognise and have a conversation.
Now I can. As I was saying earlier, when I first saw my angel, a couple of years ago, it took me a year before I got the number off my mate.
Yeah.
It would have helped me if I hadn't been so stubborn. But I was that guy that went, look, I can cope. What? I don't need anyone to tell me what to do. I'll be right. I've got to this place, okay. Why do I need someone else? Yeah. But of course, now I'm 48 nearly, and I've got 3 teenage kids. I'm a very different bloke to the bloke that perhaps handled things in his 20s or even his 30s. And we've got to recognise that I've got issues now that I didn't have 20 years ago. Yeah. And how am I best going to deal with them? Well, talking to myself up here, that is not the answer. I've worked that out.
Yeah. And speaking to balance again, obviously for men, it's that thing, the mask is about strength and resilience and all that stuff, which are very important characteristics, but it's finding that balance between being strong and self-reliant and self-sufficient and being pig-headed and, this is probably not serving you anymore, right?
Exactly. I mean, people say to me when I talk about this sort of new life that I'm trying to lead and God, that just sounds like you're a sissy. It sounds like you're a this and a that. And they call you names. I go, okay, well, if that's how you feel, then that's how you feel. There might be some people out there that, can handle everything. You don't need to talk to someone. Yep. I'm not that tough. I'm very, very open to someone trying to fix me and make me a better person. We're not talking about walking down the street, falling over, clipping a nail and going, I've got to go and see someone and crying. But if you're in a position where you can't actually open your mouth and talk to anyone about you thinking about ending your life, or you're thinking about making a huge change in your life, whether it's going to have an affair or do something wrong to get yourself out of a situation, try to do a shortcut somewhere. If you can't turn around to someone, even if it's a lifeline complete stranger, and talk to them, well, that to me is weak. The strong thing to do is actually recognise the issue and move on. I recognise that is a very difficult thing for a lot of Aussie blokes, which is why
it's changing the paradigm of vulnerability, right?
Right, but vulnerability for me is you're making yourself vulnerable by not being talkative, not being open to discussing stuff.
Using that courage that comes from actually sharing, right?
But we get stereotypes shoved down our throat every single day. I'm looking around the room now, like we've got the gym, we've got Slash, we've got Album of the Year, just got big, we've got Slash sitting there going, whoa. We've got the Foo Fighters, that's just in this room. AC/DC, Black Ice Tour. A skateboard. This big Marshall said here, the telly, me up there with Wolverine doing the New York Marathon, right? All that stuff is just this blokey world that we live in. Yeah. So, and that's without the beers that we're drinking. All this stuff is just built around being tough, resilient, don't be a softie and stuff. Yeah. So it's not easy. And I wonder, and I understand why people don't talk about it, but we need to keep the conversation going and break it all down. Nice. Manning up is about being vulnerable, not being stoic and silent.
And I would also argue there that we've taken stoicism a bit too far. In
Definitely.
The sense that it's misconstrued. If you actually read the Stoics, I'm a bit of a geek, so I do that stuff. I mean, it's paying attention to what's going on inside you would be a big part of that.
There's also, the Stoic Australian was built around the pioneers, around the Anzacs, people that we love, our soldiers and that type of stuff. Well, we don't have to be that person anymore. 95% of us live along the coastline. You can actually ring up speak to someone, walk into a GP.
Yeah.
You know, like life has changed, so we should change with it.
Very nice. So then, speaking of vulnerability, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there anything you don't talk about that you're willing to perhaps share with us today?
I think I'm a pretty open book. I've got a couple of things in my life out of respect for other people I don't talk about.
Yep.
I speak to them about it, and I speak to them about when can I talk about it, because I find myself wanting to talk about a couple of issues, but out of respect for them, I don't do it. Once they give me the green light, it nearly came up in Man Up.
Yeah.
We actually shot a piece in Man Up that didn't make the show in the way that I wanted it to, so I decided if we're not going to do it properly, let's not do it at all. So that'll come out at some stage, and I'd love to do it on your program because I feel a synergy amongst you and I. But just out of respect to that person, I won't do it. But mate, you can pretty much ask me anything. I'm completely open.
Cool. So now I want to distinguish a little bit. Me asking you is fine. What about you sharing? So for a lot of guys, I think a lot of things that we hold in are things that are, sources of shame, perhaps, and guilt. Those are the things that we don't want to share. Those are the things that we get up in our head about. Yeah. So not necessarily any specifics, but do you find that you can recognise those feelings in you and maybe share them and address them? Yeah,
and I think I've done that. There's a couple of times in the last year or so where I've gone to see people that I know that I was a complete fuckwit. At the time, I just fucked it. And I just wanted to have that moment and say, look, I just know now, that I recognise the fact that I was a dick.
Okay, so owning up to your shit.
Absolutely. Perfect. Like this is that fuck up night that was in the show. It's like standing up and going, I'm ticking some boxes here, and here, but I fucked up here, and here. And people sort of just applauding you and going, good on you for getting it out. Yeah, so I went and saw a couple of people, put my hand up, and they were like, what? Doesn't matter. What are you talking? It was years ago, I know, but I said, I'm owning it now.
Yeah,
and they're like,
still something that was in
okay,
you.
That's fine. But it's like anything. Once you start talking about it out loud, it's never as bad. So I thought I was going to get a barrage going, well, that has affected my life or whatever. They were like, nah, we didn't see it that way. But it's what our head's telling us, It's a very powerful, those 7 inches between the ears.
You were still holding on to it, and that's the key, right? If we're holding on to it, we probably need to address it. Yeah. And it might be some forgiveness of self.
Yes.
And other things. But recognising it and having the conversation, that's the key, right?
But I spoke to a mate of mine about that, and he said to me, well, why are you putting your shit onto them? And I'm going, well, I had to get rid of it. And he said, but that's selfish. Mm-hmm. You're actually wanting to get something off your chest that might bring up some bad memories for them that they have to then deal with. And I sort of that resonated with me as well. Like, am I going to make myself feel better and actually upset someone else? Yeah.
I think that shows that there's no black or white, right?
It's a whole lot of grey.
A whole lot of grey, but that's it. It's so important to recognise that. There's no magic pill, no magic solution.
No.
And you just got to treat everything, as it comes, kind of thing, right?
Most blokes like to have black and white, yes and no. Yeah. We don't like the grey area. We want a winner and a loser. We want a champion. We want evil. We want good. And that's why perhaps talking about your feelings and stuff is so difficult for us, because we're going to places that don't give any absolute definites.
Yeah, that's great.
Because we're fixers. We want
a solution. Yep.
Get it done, move on. Awkward conversation out of the way.
Cool. Okay, so wrapping things up, we are here today because of Man Up, right? Because we are two blokes who are passionate about getting men to open up a bit and take ownership of our shit and actually, go beyond the beers a bit. So what's next? Obviously, Man Up for you, I talk about the bigger conversation. What's the bigger conversation you're having? So Man Up is kind of it, but what's next? And actually at the same time, how did it go? Like, did it meet your expectations? What went on there?
So Man Up, in terms of expectations for me, I think the show itself was so much better than I expected it to be. Yeah. The response has been out of control, not just in Australia, but worldwide, and in your homeland, in New Zealand, so many people wanting it. Well, now we've put it for free on the internet and on a manup.org website. Yep. So I'm very proud of that, the fact that we haven't sort of gone off and sold it. Yep. Like, it's just available for anyone to get hold of if you want to.
Perfect.
Yeah. Tom Harkin, who is the male whisperer who talked to my son's class in episode 2, he's as busy as he's ever been, and I'm looking after him to make sure that he's not doing everything for free, because that's the type of person he is. But he's just had a new baby boy. He's got a wife. He's got his business to look after. And I said, you've got to, for everyone, for the heart, you've got to do a couple that you put an invoice for, because that's his skill, that's his life. And these companies who are bringing him in, they're all earning money. So looking after Tom, I want to do something with Tom in Series 2. I reckon he's fantastic.
Series 2 is coming?
Well, Series 2 is in discussions.
Right.
The ABC have been really pleased with it. There's a lot of ABC viewers that believe it's, you know, something they'd like to see on a regular basis.
Nice.
I've got to work that out with Triple M. Triple M have been wonderful and given me time off. And when we worked out of WA, I worked out of the Perth studio for 3 days. So that just plays with, you know, the grill team synergy and the fact that, because we're all talking all the time, it's difficult if someone's not in the studio.
Yeah, of course.
So I just need to balance that all out and get permission from the missus, because I know I go a little missing when I do the shows, because I get so involved in them. But there's a few boxes to be ticked, but in terms of expectation, we'll make a good show. I think we made a great show. Yeah. It's now worldwide. Millions of people are seeing it. I'm so proud of it. It's certainly the best thing I've ever done, and I want to continue doing it. Blokes like you, I didn't know before Man Up. Now I know you. There's another 5 or 6 people just like you who are just really cool people that are just get it, and you can be so. Our voices have all got to be together to get it all out there. So I can't stop doing it. So that hopefully will be my.
So where does it go for you? Not necessarily the show.
Yeah.
But you've now got a fire in you, right? We can see it.
Yeah.
So what is the bigger conversation? Where do you take it?
Telling as many people as possible, making it as simple as possible. I think blokes in Australia find it really difficult to talk about it. So if we just say, "Are you okay?" that's a good starting point. But we can easily lie that off. We can just put the mask on and deal with it. So it's the next question and the next bit of listening is the most important thing. So making blokes realise that have the awkward start to the conversation to be probably the best conversation you've ever had.
And also, if we look back at our lives, we've probably got examples of that.
Yeah,
right?
But we forget about that, don't we? We remember, you know, our teams winning grand finals or blowing big leads or something like that. But the important stuff in our life we tend to forget about. And just have trust in someone in your life that you can talk to something about something really important. And you know, haven't got all the answers, but I've got some sort of solution to help in some way. So I'm just going to drive down that path. Try not to overcomplicate it. The only thing I remember from uni is keep it simple, silly. So that's what I'm going to try to do, and you know, fingers crossed it'll work.
Nice. Well, look, personally, I think you've done a great job, as I said at the start of the show. And personally, I also think it's crucial that men step up and provide examples. And I think one of the big things that we need as men with this stuff is permission. We need permission almost to give ourselves permission to start having those conversations, be a bit more vulnerable and that kind of stuff. And that's why I think, you know, guys like you stepping up in a very public space, it's great to see. It makes, you know, my job and so on easier because more guys are willing to do that thing, right? So thank you for coming on the show, Gus. Thank you absolutely for the work that you're doing and Man Up. I'm looking forward, obviously, to hearing more and seeing Man Up Series 2, whatever that may be.
Exactly right. Thank you.
And that's our show, fellas. So thank you for tuning in. And remember, if you can take one thing from today, it is have the conversation. If you need to ask a mate how he's really doing, then do that. Or if he just wants to go beyond the beers. Click on the link below and go to beyondthebeers.tv. There you can sign in to watch the rest of the episodes for free, as well as all the episodes of the show. Otherwise, make sure you share this episode with at least one man you think will enjoy or benefit from it. Now go out into your own life and start having these more meaningful conversations. Ask for help. Ask a mate how he's really doing. Or if he just wants to have a real conversation and go beyond the beers.